Keep up to date with everything this year on Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube and WordPress.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening in the world. Welcome to episode 2 of Diary of a Mercedes Fan. But where have you been, Nico, I hear you ask? You're late, Nico, I hear you ask. I demand an explanation, Nico, I hear you ask. Well, an explanation you will get. I'm very sorry for the late running. I don't want to sound like a... If you live in the UK and you're very used to hearing about train announcers and their delays, I'm sorry to announce that Diary of a Mercedes Fan has been delayed. Well, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is apologise for the late running of this, to use a train excuse, late running of this episode indeed, because I was a bit unwell after the Bahrain Grand Prix last week, so didn't manage to do the episode when I wanted to, and I didn't feel like that it would be actually a very good episode, considering that I was unwell. Wouldn't have really been productive for me to do it, and I don't like to do things half-heartedly or try and force it. I always like to try and be the best that I can possibly make it. So I decided to do it a bit later, and when I'm a lot better, because I'm better now, so that's the most important thing. But obviously, because Bahrain was a week ago and China is only a few days away, the emphasis is the time I would have spent more on Bahrain is not going to be so much, because this episode is essentially going to be split into two halves. It's going to be half Bahrain, talking about Bahrain and just the most important points, and the second half is going to be previewing China and what we can expect. So that's the parish notices out the way for episode 2. And yeah, not really much more to say than to let's get on with the show. Also, I realised I didn't say in the intro that once again I've been plagued by the audio synchronization and video synchronization issues I had in episode 1. So unfortunately you're not going to be able to see my beautiful mug for this episode. I don't know when this issue is going to go or whether it's going to be resolved, but I still want to do these episodes anyway, so let's crack on. Bahrain, and from a Mercedes perspective, it was a very, very good Grand Prix. The emphasis going to this Grand Prix was always going to be about, will Ferrari be faster than us? Will Ferrari be on par? Is the gap going to close? And if you haven't listened to my SoundCloud coverage of the weekend, I advise you do. It's on the Twitter feed, or if you just go to soundcloud.com/diary of a Merc fan, but there's like dashes in between those in between all those words. But yeah, even so, the links will be in the description. Even better, the links will be in the description. So just go down into the description and click on the SoundCloud, and there's a Round 2 Bahrain playlist where you can listen to everything. So during that weekend, we had the times were rapid. Like, the times were rapid to the point where the qualifying time was the fastest ever lap set on the Bahrain International Circuit, which was phenomenal in itself. Going towards the race anyway, I felt quite confident about this one. Everyone was waxing lyrical about the starts, and I've always said that I always believe it's been because when that's happened, we've had to do a second formation lap. Every time we've had a bad start, it's been because of a consequence of having to do a second formation lap. And it was no different in Australia. We had to do a second formation lap and we didn't get a good start. So I knew that I wasn't particularly fussed about the start, whereas Sky, Channel 4, everyone was waxing lyrical about the starts, and I was just like, oh, it's old news. I have faith, but before the race, I'm not keen to Schradenfolder, but it was a shame to see Sebastian Vettel, have an engine problem and not start the race, his first DNF of his career. But in a way, it made me a little bit more comfortable, because I was like, well, realistically, I don't really see Kimi Räikkönen as much as a threat as Vettel, so that was spectacular in itself. And then the start, oh my goodness, the start, Rosberg just literally lit up the blue touch paper, and he was gone. He was gone. He was in Abu Dhabi with that start. That was mental. And so he was gone. And then Lewis tried to go wide to double back and try and get the run out of 4. And by doing that, left the space open for Bottas. And Bottas kind of, as you do, see the space. Lewis didn't see he was there, and then the gap was it was a racing incident, but Bottas just put himself into a gap which was there, which was always going to close, unfortunately. But by the time it was too late, they collided. Bottas came off the more better than Lewis. Lewis got a damaged floor, but at that point, for the first half a lap, he seemed to be going backwards, and I thought, oh no, please. While all there was Rosberg was, driving out in the country, I was really concerned about Lewis. But then the car seemed to do its business, and it started to get a bit back up, and while it was faster than everyone else, it wasn't as fast as the front two. So all in all, it was an exciting Grand Prix. I mean, Nico was really untroubled. Kimi in the end did all he could, but Nico was untroubled, and Lewis managed to do good pace. So with that, Nico Rosberg triumphed to take his 5th consecutive win in Formula 1, the last 3 races of this year and the last 3 races of last year and the first 2 of this year. And some interesting statistics to come out of this Grand Prix. That win for Rosberg was the 38th win for Mercedes since coming back into Formula 1. Their 81st podium finish as well, coming back as a constructor into Formula 1. And I think that's, considering that most of the statistics are from 2012, the podium, obviously, they got podiums in 2010, didn't get any in 2011, and got a few in 2012. I find that spectacular. Also, it was the 89th podium finish for Lewis Hamilton, if you count the ones he was at McLaren as well, and the 43rd podium for Nico Rosberg, which was very good as well. And that marked 10 years as well as Nico being in Formula 1. He made his debut at the 2006 Bahrain Grand Prix, so that was good for him. But yes, it was a good Grand Prix, a lot of action. Nico was pretty much untroubled up front, as you would expect. Lewis kind of got taken out of the equation, and obviously Sebastian got taken out of the equation, but they didn't take away from what was a spectacular Grand Prix. In and around, battles everywhere, people were battling, but once again, and I always do it, because it's, even though it's Diary of a Mercedes fan, I think there's going to just have to be a Diary of a Haas fan section in, or a Grosjean appreciation section of this program where I just wax lyrical for about 2 minutes about Romain Grosjean and Haas, because once again I just kind of just fell in love with the car and Grosjean, because I was just like, aggressive, super soft 3-stop strategy, and he finished 5th. I was just like, jeez. I remember at the start of the year when Haas was saying they wanted points, I laughed a bit. I didn't laugh totally because it wasn't impossible, but I did laugh a bit, and now after 2 races they've got 18 points, and I'm just kind of like, well, that teaches me to kind of laugh, because no one thought that Haas was ever going to do that, and Grosjean was going to do that. And once again, I mean, gosh, in China, I'm going to be disappointed if they don't finish top 10. Or, I mean, no. The thing with Haas is that I don't think they're going to finish top 5 every race, but they've done more already in 2 races than what Manor, Caterham and HRT will put together. And I know that there's this argument about the other teams not really respecting the way Haas have gone about doing things. But Martin Brundle made a good point in over the Grand Prix weekend about Haas, that yeah, while the small teams might be, or people like Williams, and want to protect their independent constructor status, what it's good for Formula One that Haas can come in and be competitive straight off the board, because I would rather see Haas scoring points, being competitive, than seeing a HRT or a Caterham running 7 seconds behind the pace, right at the back, and getting lapped like 7 times by a Mercedes or a Red Bull or whatever. Like, we need competitive teams in Formula One, and if Haas can, it's in the rules. Haas haven't broken any rules with the way they've constructed their car. It might not appeal to everybody, but one more competitive team in Formula One does the sport the world of good. So I'm completely happy in that respect that Haas are doing very well, and they deserve it, because they've gone about their way, the way they do things, in a very professional manner, and deserve the success that they can get. And to be fair, why would Haas be worrying about what other people are saying? I remember the team principal of Haas was like, more importantly, teams should look at themselves first before they start talking about, about us. And that's true. If you're in a position, if you're behind Haas in the Constructors' Championship, then start focusing about yourself. But before I ramble on too long, let's get back to Bahrain. The key points to take from this Bahrain Grand Prix is that I think people are starting to realise that Nico Rosberg is more than a match and a challenge for Lewis Hamilton. Yes, Lewis Hamilton hasn't raced Nico Rosberg yet in a battle, as it were. But the fact that Nico's showing a bit more of his 2014 resilience says to me that this year's title fight is going to be a little bit more of a maybe more down to the wire, like it was in 2014, and not necessarily like like it was last year. Okay, Lewis is down in the standings, like he was in 2014. But going into China, Nico's going to be in relative spirits. Lewis is a lot more comfortable over there. But another thing I realised, that this championship could be well and truly over for Ferrari if they don't get their reliability issues sorted out. Vettel lost 25 points simply due to reliability issues. And if they don't sort out the engine issues, then this could just turn out to be, for all the waxing lyrical about how Ferrari are closer to Mercedes, it's not going to mean anything if the reliability is not there, if the car is not starting races, if people are DNSing or DNFing in the middle of Grand Prix because of a reliability issue. So I'm assuming that Ferrari will be working hard to get that issue sorted out, no doubt. But until they can, they've got to be very careful that reliability issues doesn't hamper their weekend in China. And also that Toro Rosso are still looking very decent at the first half of the season, along with Red Bull as well. And Williams have disappointed slightly. I would have expected them to be a little bit more quicker than they have been this year. I know it's only 2 races in, but even so, it does genuinely look like they are behind Toro Rosso, Ferrari, and Red Bull in terms of race pace, which is a step back for Williams, considering that they in 2014 had probably the second fastest car, then last year had the default third fastest car on the grid. But the fight for third in the Constructors' Championship could be very interesting, and it's 2 races in, but the field is looking like this, that there's a almighty scrap between Mercedes and Ferrari, and the battle behind it is going to be as equally as ferocious from Williams, Red Bull, Toro Rosso, Haas, Force India, McLaren. That bracket there is really tight between everyone, and that is going to be interesting to see over the season. But this concludes part 1. Apologies that it's been a bit short, as I said earlier at the start of the episode, that I've been unwell, and unfortunately that China's coming up in a few days, so I don't particularly want to linger too much on Bahrain, because the focus is on China. But that concludes part 1. I'll be back in part 2 to preview the Chinese Grand Prix and talk about what is in store this weekend for Mercedes.
Keep up to date with everything this year on Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube and WordPress.